Okay, welcome back. In this movie here, we're going to talk about doing drop shadows on your text or your type on your web page and how we do that in CSS3. And just to show you how to set up, basically I just have a div down here. I'm using the 960 grid, which is neither here nor there for this example, but I am using it. I've added a secondary class into this div called main, and inside that I just have the words text and shadow. And then that's what we're going to target up here in the style sheet. So you can see right now for the styles I have set up for the class of main, I'm going to have font size of 4M, so I'm going to blow it up, make it bigger. I'm going to give it a font weight. It's going to be bold. And my color, I'm going to crank to black. So it's going to be £000. And you can see this is what it looks like over on the left. Pretty basic. And if I want to add a drop shadow to this, this is how I'm going to do it. We're going to go in here and I'm going to write the word text dash shadow and colon. Now this is not vendor specific, as we talked about in the last movie. This should, if your browser supports it, it will work. You don't have to have all your vendor tags for this one, which is kind of nice. And at its base level, it takes 3 values. Okay, so if I type something like 2 pixels, 2 pixels, no commas, and then a color, so £000. Actually, let's bring that back to a gray. Let's go £999, let's say, which is not that dark. But anyway, let's say text shadow, 2 pixels, 2 pixels, 999. What this gives us, if it sees 3 attributes, is this is the offset, this first 2. So this is going to be 2 pixels over, 2 pixels down, and then £999 is going to be the color of the blur. So if I save that and go over and refresh the page, you're going to see that we got a little bit of a drop shadow. It's not the smoothest thing in the world. So what you're going to want to do here is actually add a 4th value into this. And what we're going to do is right after this second 2 pixel, I'm going to say 12 pixel. And what this does is it's now going to say you're going to create a text shadow. It's going to be 2 pixels over, 2 pixels down, a blur radius of 12 pixels. So it's really going to blur that out. And the color on that is going to be £999. And by the way, you can, if you want opacity, you can use RGBA values on this too. It'll accept either. So let's save this. Let's go back and refresh. And now we have more of a shadow. It almost went too light. So maybe I could go back and create, since it's blurred, let's just go back and make this £000, make it black again, come over here and refresh, and you can see now we have, well, probably need to split the difference somewhere in the middle or use an alpha channel, but I do have a text shadow. So that's basically what that does, is the first 2 attributes are the offset, and these could be negative values. If I wanted to bring it back, I could do -2, a blur radius of 12, and then the color, and this will move the shadow. You can see if I refresh, up and to the left. Okay, so that's what those attributes do. And the cool thing, let's go back and I'll reset these. The cool thing about CSS3 and this text shadow attribute is you can do multiple values here, multiple drop shadows. And how you do that is you just put a comma after the last one, and then you can put your values in for the next one. So let's go into this one, say, let's say -2 pixels, -2 pixels, 12 pixels, and then let's make this also £000, and now we're going to mix 2 drop shadows in. This is probably going to be kind of ugly, but you can see that it really starts to blur it out. I have seen people actually create flames doing this before, which is a little over the top, but it can be done. Maybe if I bring that back, it might work. So why would you want to use multiple shadows? Well, there's a couple other effects that you can get out of this, which is kind of interesting. If I wanted to, for instance, if I change my text color to white, so let's change this to £FFF, and let's leave those in place. Now it's a knocked out text, and the shadow lifts it from behind. So this is a really nice technique for if you have, let's say white text on a light gray background. It's hard to read just simply because you have a light text color and a light background. You can put that shadow on there to bring emphasis to it. This is a nice effect. Now, one word of warning here. If you're going to use this, it's very important to understand that if the browser does not support the drop shadows or the text shadow on here, you're going to have trouble because you have white text on a white background, and so it won't display anything, or it will display, you just won't see it because they're the exact same color. So just be very careful in where you use this. If you know that your audience is mainly on modern browsers, you're probably okay. But if you are trying to have a wide range of support, that's going to be a big problem. Another thing you can do, which is kind of cool, is we can actually create text outlines. This is another effect we can do. So let me delete all that's in here, and this time for our text shadow, what we're going to do is we're going to go back. I don't want a blur radius, so we're going to go back to that 3 value drop shadow where it's just, you know, a solid line. So what we're going to do for this first one is I'm going to say 1 pixels, 0. Okay, now remember we have white text on white background, so I'm going to say 1 pixel, 0, and then I'm going to say £000 for black. I'm going to do 4 of these. I'm going to say comma, -1 pixel, 0, £000. That's the second one. The third one is going to be 0, 1 pixel, pound 000, and then finally a fourth, which, if you're following along, it's going to be 0 minus 1 pixel. And then the color is going to be pound 000 for black. Okay, now what I've done here is I've created, it's not going to blur out too much. I have white text on a white background. I've set an offset of 1 pixel 0 black, minus 1 pixel 0 black, 0 1 pixel black, 0 minus 1 black. And so what this will do is it will create outlines to your text. So now when I save this, and let's go and refresh the page, you see that we get outlined text. So it used to be this was impossible to do, but now it is more possible because of the wonders of CSS3. Now, what you need to remember, once again, is when you have white text on a white background, nothing will show up if the browser doesn't support it. So just be careful of where you use this. If I use like a light gray, so I change my color to pound EEE, let's go back over here and refresh now. You can see at least I've got some color there. So if for whatever reason the browser could not see this, let's delete it. This is what it would look like in the end, is at least something would be there and I could sort of read it. But anyway, but those are just some basic effects that you can do. Just remember that it requires three attributes at the minimum. If you have a fourth attribute in there, it introduces the blur radius. You can have multiple drop shadows just separated by a comma. Remember, the values are not separated by a comma. And then also, we didn't get too into it because I don't really have a textured background or anything to show it to you on, but you can actually use RGBA values if you want the alpha in there. So if you want that the blur to have something underneath, you can have an alpha value on there as well. So anyway, that's basically how text shadow works.